NERDSoul. Yeah, late ill kid at OneYoungsta holding it down, bringing that street geek and NERDSoul. What is up, my people? Today, coming with another wonderful episode of specials. Two cool people here together. We're doing some fun stuff, linking with Black SciFi, you know what I'm saying, doing some fun things. And we're going to talk about some serious situations regarding work in the industry, money, clients, all that good stuff. But I'm going to pass it off first to Takeia Marie, that's over here or over here, depending on how it flips the video. To set this up for you guys. Takeia, what's up?
What's up? How you guys doing? So my name's Takeia Marie. I am a freelance illustrator. I have worked in comics on the indie level, but I've also done work for advertising in terms of doing concept work for commercial production. I've also done some children's books, so I've been in the publishing game too. And today I just kind of wanted to talk about something that Mike and I were talking about in a separate conversation, which was the idea of being freelance, working for clients, rates, and how to avoid bad clients. So I thought we'd have a discussion about that. And maybe we should start, Mike, you guys kind of introduce yourselves and talk about what you do. Mike, I know you have a day job in graphic design. Robert is a freelance writer, primarily in the comic book industry. So I'm going to throw it to you, Mike, and maybe you want to talk about what you do, and then Robert can go.
Cool. Well, Michael, also known as NERDSoul, 9 to 5. I do graphic design. So that's like basically print marketing, email marketing, brochures, flyers, posters, signage, digital stuff for like Instagram or Twitter. I think that's pretty much on the 9 to 5 side. Then I also freelance as photography, web design, any number of things, graphic design as well. I've worked on magazines before, Hulu, Cushman & Wakefield, Rodeo Realty, stuff like that. So I've worked at startups as well. So I've kind of got a good, well-rounded vibe of what it's like to be a graphic designer in general, sort of.
Okay.
So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Cool. And Robert, you?
Yeah, I'm the lowly writer on the panel, but freelance writer based out of Atlanta. I've been doing this for about, actually had to do the math yesterday, like 16 years. Started out with the Atlanta Voice newspaper, so I have a little bit of a background in journalism and currently work as the editor-in-chief for BlackSciFi.com. But most people probably know me from the comics, from Route 3, I guess Mine to Avenge, The Crossing, and I've actually done some DC Comics work, for got to write a story featuring John Stewart, Green Lantern. And hopefully later this summer, I will have a short story featured in an anthology with the awesome Takeia Marie on this panel. And for, I think it's Kamikaze Short Circuits. Yeah, yes. So and that's actually the first time we've actually collaborated on a published project. Yeah. So that's her art makes my work look good, so I was happy for that. But that's kind of me in a nutshell. I just write, and I do prose. I've actually been getting back into prose, so that's been also another interesting kind of venue or route to go to in terms of the business side of things, and also figuring out my worth. That's been big, and actually one of the key people for doing that is Takeia. So Takeia will be straight up and say, "Hey, you're worth it, then you better charge that much." So yeah. But I'm happy to be here, with the two of y'all, just talking about this. And one of the things I do like nowadays is that a lot of the stuff is out in the open. It's you kind of get tired of stuff kind of being hidden behind the curtain for kind of a select few.
Yeah.
And we all need to, know the business side, or just kind of, how to handle things on this level. So.
Right, exactly. So Mike, what I wanted to ask you have a 9-to-5 doing graphic design, and you also have done it freelance. What do you think is the difference? How has your experience been different between the two?
That's interesting. The main difference. Oh, I forgot something. Also, film production. But the main difference
does it all.
The main difference is probably getting your own clients.
Mm-hmm.
In most places I worked, I managed my workload, so that's kind of the same on both sides.
Right.
But probably getting your own clients is probably the biggest thing. So for me, getting my own clients was going to just about any networking event you could go to, trolling on Facebook groups, Twitter, Craigslist, any like job board looking for like, small, graphic design stuff or whatever, which is kind of a job in itself,
right.
which takes away from the time that you have to actually design things.
Right.
So that's probably the main difference. Also, you're kind of your own boss to a certain degree, because your client now sort of becomes your boss in a way, even though you can fire your client, but in a way it's kind of like you're making what they want you to make. But in a 9-to-5, you'd be making what your manager wants you to make. So they're kind of like your boss, sort of. That's probably the main difference, because you're still making, like a poster or something like that, but the main thing is getting your own clients. At least for me, that was the biggest thing. Getting your own clients, and also, of course, arranging how you get paid. What methods how you get paid, when you get paid, things like that. That's all on you. Instead of like, at a 9-to-5, they're like, hey, look, every other week, here you go.
Yeah, here you go. That's definitely a big one. Robert, has your experience been similar in terms of getting clients? Do you feel like that has been maybe the most challenging part, or what is the most challenging part for you?
Sometimes, definitely that's one of the challenges. And I find that because I'm usually hustling, between project to project, trying to find work, and sometimes there are gaps in between that. Like now, strangely enough, with the COVID, with the pandemic, I've been busy. I've been just the work has been coming through on a steady basis.
Cool.
But then what is it? They say it's like feast or famine. So that's why on my end, normally speaking, I have a 9-to-5 job, which is not within the realm of writing, which is what I would love for it to be. But so the writing has always been kind of the side gig. So I could maybe afford to maybe have only one client for a couple of months, or maybe two, and then or none. Because I have the full-time work. But one of the biggest, hurdles that I'm trying to get over is marketing myself, trying to get myself in front of people, and having them respond. So, but those are, sometimes it's feast or famine, but the other, like I said, the other side of that is getting myself out there and hustling up these opportunities. I had one kind of a frustrated tweet the other day where I said something like, I get tired of having to go to BarCon to talk to Matt and Chad, about getting a gig. And it's just like, why do I have to go to the bar? Just like, I work the floor. Like, do I need to kick it with everybody. Like, so I feel sometimes that's a part of the marketing part, of the job, the hustle. And strangely enough, when I started doing the journalism, I did like Mike was saying, I was going to the networking events. I might sometimes be the wallflower, but I knew that's how I had to drum up other gigs, so.
Right. Yeah. And that's one of the things that had been difficult for me too, because I'm not especially an outgoing person. I'm pretty much a hermit, like, for real. Yeah. I mean, this is driving me crazy now, being inside all this time, but so I kind of get how you have to kind of find that balance and try to network with people, try to talk to people. Although I think freelancing actually made me more comfortable with it, because I have to talk to clients all the time, and I have to sound like I know what I'm talking about. So one of the things I wanted to ask you guys, and Robert is a writer, but Mike, what you and I do is more visual. So do you think that it's easier for illustrators, graphic designers to get work than a writer?
I mean,
I don't know, because there's so many things that are written that we kind of forget about.
What do you mean?
So, I mean, there's people that write for podcasts. There's, so there's, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of stuff that I'm not thinking about that's written that someone's getting paid to write for right now.
Like copywriting, you think?
Yeah, like copywriting. Yeah, because there's copywriters that get paid well, but at the same time, from what I've seen, copywriting is mostly for marketing, or either marketing or research. Right. So, if that's not your thing, then, that's not a guarantee. But maybe because people like seeing something, so maybe.
Well, in comics,
oh, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. So like marketing and stuff I can understand, but in comics, I wonder if it's the same, because what you do in comics, I mean, it's a very visual based medium, right? So do you feel like, and maybe this is more of a question for Robert, but before I get to you, Robert, do you feel Mike, that with graphic design, do you ever do design where writing goes hand in hand, where writing is important to what you do?
Most of it that I do now is, because most of everything that I have now is some form of advertisement. So I have to be aware of the spacing and placement of words and how certain words stand out above others, headlines and stuff like that. Also, there's the text that you have to have, the disclaimer text, how that's placed, how large that has to be, where it has to be. If there's any postal indicia that has to be on there, so stuff like that. For the comic books, I'd say this is something that I heard someone say a while back, and it kind of rings true for me as long as I've been reading. The art hooks you, but the writing keeps you. So if you ever got into a book like, oh man, this book looks cool, and then like you read like 2 issues and you kind of faded away, it's probably because the writing probably wasn't on that. But if you got it and you stuck around like 5, 6, 10, 12, 15 issues, then it's like, oh, I'm enjoying this story too.
Right. Right. Yeah.
But yeah, like as far as the words, whenever you're displaying percentages, pie charts, graphs, heat maps, stuff like that, because I get to do the amazing, fun pie charts as well, and trying to make pie charts look cool. You know what I mean? Trying to make a graph look sweet. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, but yeah, that's kind of like where the words come in for me most of the time, is figuring layout and how to make those words seem important, because most people just like headline, I'm out, Right. So how to make those words seem important enough to actually read, and then also keep the person that gave you the work excited.
Keeping them happy. So
Yeah.
so I like that the art hooks you, but the writing keeps you, right? Robert, do you feel that's true in your experience, and do you feel that it's harder for writers than it is for artists?
So I accepted a long time ago that comics are a visual medium. So the art is what's going to get people to stop at a LCS, a local comic book shop or store, and actually take a chance. They're not looking at until a potential reader opens up the book and starts reading page by page. Are they going to? Is that that's when the story or the words or the script is going to jump out at them? So art sells, but on the flip side of that, I do feel that let me tell a story. So I was at New York Comic Con last year, and when we were still doing conventions back in the old days. So, and I won't say the publisher, but I was in line for a publisher, and it was a portfolio. It was actually a portfolio review. So it was actually told by an editor. So I'm actually working at the booth to stand in line for the portfolio review. And I just to explain that to the editor that I was a writer, and that I just wanted to leave a stack of comics with them, just kind of samples of my work. And when I walked up, the guy spoke to the editor. He was like, "Oh, so you're an artist?" And as soon as I said I was a writer, his face just dropped. So that's been my experience with when it comes to the demand for writers versus being an artist. I sometimes feel that when it comes to kind of the talent searches, the writers are kind of secondary. But I do feel that it is still, and strangely enough, the market is focused a lot more on the writing now versus than it was back in the 90s when it was just the artists were the superstars. But I do think that it is very difficult to break in on either front. But on the writers end, I can only speak from personal experience. It's very difficult. Very, very much, very difficult. So sometimes I don't think that the writing is seen as being as attractive as when it comes to the art side of things. And that's just kind of how it is. Like I said, but I do think that there is sometimes more of a demand for a talented artist. As long as you're a good storyteller and you can tell a story in sequential within that I guess method, then that shows that you can do more than just pinups, and that's what I look for as a writer. But it's hard breaking in with these editors, it just like I said, I remember how that guy's face fell when I said, "Yes, I'm a writer." He was like, "Oh."
So
I was like, "What's this?" Okay, because forget this. I was it hurt me. It kind of hurt my heart, but and that wasn't the first time that's happened, and it's happened at plenty of conventions. But that's just been my personal experience with it.
Right. So then let's talk about Mike, was it hard for you breaking in to your industry? And I'm gonna throw out the question I really want to ask. Is it because you're Black?
I want to say no.
Just break out the popcorn.
But yeah, it probably is. I'm from Richmond, Virginia, so I've been drawing or designing in some form since second grade or something like that, second grade. So I got to a point where I did a documentary series for the Red Cross in Richmond, Virginia. So I did that, and then work was just dried up. I would go into interviews, we would have it. I would have like portfolio. I'd have a digital version, physical version, all that. Wear the suit, everything. Go in there. I know they're hiring because I'm responding to the thing. Nothing. And not to say that I'm the best graphic designer in the world, but to a certain degree, you always kind of feel like, dang, I didn't even get an email back, like from none of these people.
Right.
So that's when I decided to leave Virginia because I was like, I gotta, I wasn't really happy just working at a call center, which I was doing. Anyone who's working in a call center, I feel you. Right. I know, man. You get hired, they hire you, they say you don't have to sell nothing. Then you're there for about a month or two, then they say they want you to sell something. I understand. I feel you. So, but I started just applying to jobs. And LA was one of the places where I was applying. I saw Hulu had an opening. I applied, and they had me do an art test, which I'm on the fence about sometimes. Sometimes I'm into art tests, sometimes I'm not, because there are situations, there have been documented cases of people using art tests to jump off their ideas to get to the designers they already got. Yep. So, absolutely. I'm always on the fence about that, and I was on the fence about that when I decided to do it. I got hired, and that was kind of my trip to LA. That was my ticket to LA. So that's kind of sort of how I got into it. But even in that case, I did feel like and this is not to give LA some kind of extra props, because trust me, LA has its issues. But I did feel the interview process was a lot different than it was in Virginia. Like, I didn't see that like millisecond pause when they first saw my face. And we know that like that little pause, like,
your name's Mike, but
that's wrong.
But you darker than I expected.
Your dark period.
So I didn't get that millisecond pause. So I got hired, and that was, Hulu was mostly entertainment. So I was doing that, but I didn't feel it in that case. But pretty much everywhere in the DMV area, I definitely got that millisecond pause. And it's just funny, kind of like that vibe that you get when you're like, you come and you're like, all right, I got some decent stuff, at least enough to get maybe a call back or an email back, or like, nah, it was just like ghosted, like nothing.
Wow.
So there are times when you can kind of see eye to eye when you're like, you didn't expect me to be black, did you?
Right.
Like,
exactly.
You didn't think, because I also have a suffix to my last name, which suffixes aren't usually. They're not usually in our community like that. But they probably, that with the suffix, they were probably like, oh,
yeah,
I know exactly what I'm gonna see. and then I walk in, and it's kind of like, oh. So yeah. And then also, like, we've heard on the news, I'm big and I'm black. So there's not. So then that's another thing. So yeah. But so you kind of get that vibe, but I haven't gotten as much over here in LA that I got it in Virginia. I'll say that.
Gotcha. Yeah, the whole name thing. My name's Takeia, so they know. It's like they know. Like they look at it, and I'm sure they're already like, yeah. So I feel like the name thing is definitely something that people make assumptions. They make assumptions, and it's interesting. It's interesting to see that. That being said, how do you navigate it? How do you go into a job interview, or you try to reach out to a potential client, maybe you're pitching or something, and then they realize you're not what they thought that you were. Do you say, you know what, forget it, I don't want this job because you were racist? Do you say, still try to pitch that person? Do you question yourself, like, is it me? Am I just reading too much into this? Like, how do you guys, in those situations, how do you navigate it? And if you want to jump in, Robert.
Yeah, I actually want you to answer that first, Takeia.
You want me to answer it?
Yeah, I want you to answer that first.
I can answer this with this. Let me tell y'all this story. Something that happened.
Uh-oh, here we go.
This happened not too long ago, but I had someone from, and Robert has heard this story. I had someone from a big advertising agency, big in New York, reach out to me about potentially doing something, and it was crazy because the email started out with, we're such and such. I'm not gonna throw it out there because I don't want any backlash, but we're such and such. We've done work for all these brands, and it was big brands. That's how they led. And then came
they started out by stunting first.
Yeah, they started out by stunting. They stunted hard. And then when I was like, okay, this sounds cool, whatever. When I got down to the bottom of the email, they said they didn't have a budget. And I'm like, what are you emailing me for then? But they were on some exposure type stuff. For exposure. And I don't think we got to get into that, right?
Yeah,
that's a whole other thing. Yeah. That hit my soul right there. So they hit me with the exposure thing. And I was like, and I don't think that they knew, based on my portfolio, that I had done advertising work before. So I knew who they were. I knew who that company was. And so I actually reached out to a friend of mine who works in advertising. And I was like, okay, this is the situation. This is what happened. And I actually, believe it or not, guys, I wanted to take that phone call because I wanted to hear what else they were going to say.
Sometimes you got to do that.
I did. I actually set up a call with them. But before I did that, I reached out to a friend of mine and I told her this is the situation because my friend sees budgets all the time. So I was like, how much would you guys usually charge for like this kind of work? Like, what would you expect for someone to, to pay an artist for this kind of work? And she told me, don't do it for less than X. So I went back to them and I said, I think the rate I ended up giving them was $600 a day. And I told them, they asked me, well, if you did it, they said if you did it where, you didn't have to do it per day. You could kind of do it on your own time. Although they had a deadline, which was weird. How am I doing it on my own time and you have a deadline? Yeah, that doesn't even make sense. But like, cause they had a time period where they wanted to get it out. They wanted to get it out by a certain thing, by a certain time, because they wanted to capitalize on like, Black History Month and all kinds of stuff going on. So I said, this would be my day rate. And they said, well, can you do it, if we allowed you to just do it on your own time, would it be any different? I said, no, because the work is the same. So, so that was a situation where,
talking about?
Right. So that was a situation where it was really disappointing because it's like, you work with a ton of big brands. Where's that money? Why can't you pay me? Yep. And so that was one of the things though that I wondered, is this like a big, am I witnessing something systemic right here in this conversation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The whole exposure thing. What do you think, Mike?
Here's the problem with exposure in general. And this is definitely in the entertainment industry heavy. Because I'm pretty sure Robert's been like, if you write for us for free, look at all the exposure.
Yeah.
And then, all right, so here's my thing. You're not going to get the exposure. You'll probably get the credit sometimes, but you're not going to get the exposure you think you're going to get.
Mm-hmm.
I am not a proponent of working for exposure, except if, say HBO comes to me, hey, we want you to do something for us, but we don't have a budget. We want you to do it for exposure. All right, so this is HBO. This is Warner Brothers, all that. Cool. You don't want to open up your purse? Open up your resources. Mm-hmm. So that means I want this amount of tweets about how I'm working for you. I want this amount of Facebook posts. I want access to this. I want access to that. I want to free this. I want to free that. I want to free, because you have it laying in the prop department, or you have it around here, or you have this. I want a one-on-one meeting with such and such. So these things cost you nothing. Mm-hmm. These things cost you nothing. You say you have no budget, fine, but open up your resources. Now, most people will not be open to that, but if they are, I say take it. But when I say resources, I mean I want them resources.
Right.
I want meetings with people that matter, people that make decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Not craft services.
Nah.
That's interesting, Mike, because I never even thought about like the social media component of it. Like, okay, you guys, so you would do you think you would come to them and say, I want this in a contract that says you're going to tweet about me X number of times or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I would stipulate that the tweets cannot be on the same day. I would stipulate that the tweets or the Facebook post or the Instagram post cannot be on the same day. I want the ability to film my work there as like a behind the scenes or whatever. I want the ability to make this experience work for me just as much as it's working for you. Because if I'm not getting money, then what's in it for me? Yeah. Because HBO, Netflix, none of them really impress me. I like using your services, but you don't impress me on a professional level.
Right.
I can use anybody's services. So if you want me, show me.
Show me.
but this whole thing of like work for exposure, we're not going to give you nothing. No. Right. So if it's a brand, or if maybe it's not a brand, but they got money, then cool. That means they got resources. I see y'all got 5 of these cameras. I want to be able to use one of these for a whole weekend, no questions asked, whatever. I want to be able to use the studio space for the next 90 days for free. I want to be, there's things that you ain't got no money, cool. Resources.
I mean, Mike, in your case, red carpet premieres. Red carpet premieres.
And don't be sitting me at the end where you put all the black outlets, because you'll be all at the end and people just try to walk back. No, I want to be right between Variety and Deadline. That's where I want to be. You know what I'm saying? I want to be up front.
Right, exactly.
That's where I want to be.
Exactly. And go ahead, Robert.
No, I was just, what I say before, double dutch my way into the question. The thing about exposure, what we were saying is, I've heard it said that if you do enough stuff for exposure, you'll die of exposure. Yeah, because you're not getting paid anything. So. And what was the original question? Was it just about, were we just talking about exposure in general, or was there something else?
I think we kind of got on the subject of exposure, but we can continue down this path, because this is one that I think a lot of artists, and especially I would say, and I hate to put this on an age thing, because it can happen to anybody, but I think younger artists are mostly targeted when it comes to this kind of thing, because they, sometimes they'll still think like, oh, this is a big company. I can, I can get so much exposure, and I can then use that to get more work. And actually the work that you get comes from the work that you do. It doesn't come from I worked for X company, because you could say you worked for X company, but if that person that's hiring you looks at your work and it's not a fit, or they feel like it's not good enough, or whatever the case may be, a million different things that they might think, you're probably not going to get hired for that job, even if you worked for, you know, a big brand or something like that. So the conversation about exposure is a very important one. And just to double back on the story I was telling, you know, we ended up not doing anything because they, you know, at the end of the day, they didn't have a budget. But it was very disappointing. And the reason I wondered if it was a systemic thing was because I knew they specifically wanted a Black artist for the project that they were doing. And even better if it's a Black woman. Right, because you want, and that's where we get into
because they want to be able to be like, look at, pat ourselves on the back, look at what we did.
They hold you up like Simba.
Right, exactly, and so if we can get, you know, someone who is marginalized, and then we can kind of uphold that. And so on the face of it, if I had done it and that project came out and they could show and tout that they used a Black woman to do the work, but behind the scenes they didn't pay me anything. Right. So we're still in the same cycle. You didn't do anything progressive because you didn't pay me for my work.
Yeah, like you said, all you did is kind of like use. All you did. see, I'm telling you, man. NERDSoul Light does not like when, you know, Black women don't get paid for their work. You know what I'm saying? So you know, he ain't playing that mess. He like, look, pay up. But yes, now that you say it, you're right. Younger artists usually do get that. And my message to younger artists is, if they tell you that they don't have money, say, you know what? I'm glad you said that. You know what you do have? Y'all got this nice space. I'd like to have access to it for 90 days unencumbered. I'd like to have this. Have your list ready of what you want from them that costs them nothing. But all they have to do is open up the door. All they have to do is give you a meeting with such and such. They don't cost them no money. They don't come out their budget. So then you'll see whether they're BSing or not. And usually they're BSing. But every now and then you'll get an opportunity where you'll be like, oh, cool. I get to use their drone for the whole weekend for free. Right. I get to have, you know, I do photography too. I get their photo space for X amount of time. I get to film everything around here as a little documentary to put on my channel for my page. I get them tweeting about me and everything. So it's like, you know, and then also when you put in that, when you look at their social media presence, be like, look, y'all ain't got enough numbers for the exposure to work, and toss that ball back in their court. Right. Be like, well, be like, you know, don't be afraid to know your work. They came to you for your work. You ain't come to them. You know what I'm saying? They came to you. Right. So it's like, let them know, like, yo, look, I'm an artist. I know what I'm doing. I got my skills. You're going to have to pay me some type of way.
So I remember...
Oh, go ahead, Robert. Sorry.
No, and I remember what your original question was, because it was something I did want to speak to. So you were, you know, discussing race, you know, when it comes to our place within the industry. One of the, so when I did the work for DC, and I didn't get no calls back, didn't get nothing back. I started to kind of question, you know, my worth. And this is kind of a personal thing. You know, this might be kind of a more personal thing. But then also you start asking the question of, did they meet their quota for this month? Right. And when I say that, you know, this is me in my head. You know, this is, you know, have they met their Black quota? And nothing was ever relayed to me, you know, within my experience in the workshop and dealing with editorial, that like, no, you're it, you know, this is it. It's, I knew going into it, that, and from the research that I'd done, and we talked about this, Takeia, that there were some writers and artists who had gone through previous workshops who had gone on to get more work with the company. And there were some who didn't, and they were a variety of, you know, sexes and races or whatever. You know, it's a hard industry, and it's also one of the biggest, if not one of the, you know, bigger publishers within the comic book industry and just pop culture as a whole. So I knew the chances were slim, but because I am a Black man in the industry, you start asking, was this possibly an issue? Was this possibly, or was I just not good enough? To the point where I started asking. Well, and actually, one of the reasons I did ask that is because one of the, the last responses I got from one of my editors when I asked if there were opportunities to just pitch, not to get guaranteed work, was focus on your own stuff. So, they just basically told me to stick with indies, and then that was it. So after that, when I started using the the Jon Stewart story, along with my experience to get in front of other publishers, maybe like, let's say second tier publishers, in person and by email, I'm still not getting any responses, and once again, that goes back to, am I not good enough, or is it a race thing, or is it whatever, or have these companies met their quotas? Right. We know how the industry does when it focuses on marginalized, people of color, people of different, sexual orientations. Sometimes it feels like if you're not a straight white male, that those opportunities to write those AAA tier titles aren't there. And I think that, but then there are inroads being made with certain creators, but it's just unfortunate. That's one of the questions that we have to ask ourselves, is it because of the color of your skin, or is it because you're just not good enough? So that's, that's kind of specifically, and I've had more, I've never really felt any pushback because of my race, when it came to indie comics. And if I did, I just, tell them to kick rocks and go buy some other stuff. Which will be crappier than what you could have bought from me. So, but I think having, building myself up within indie comics, before getting into the workshop helped to kind of thicken my skin, specifically with Black indie comics. We are a niche within a niche, but we're growing so much that, our worth is always going to be, I think, that much more than, sometimes what the mainstream, folks can put out. And as far as the exposure part of, that, like you've told me before, Takeia, know your worth, know your worth. And if they can't work with that, then, just find other folks, find other potential opportunities. As a writer, that has been asked of me. And I will say that there were times when I was in college that I did write on a volunteer basis. I wrote for my school newspaper. I wasn't getting paid for that. But I would get free tickets to movie screenings. I would get free tickets to Kanye West concert when he wasn't crazy. That type of stuff. Front row seats. That type of, that stuff. So I was able to parlay that experience into something else. But once I got out of college, I was just like, I got this thing that I love to do called eating food and having a roof over my head. So y'all are going to pay me for what I love to do. So yeah, the exposure at a certain age, it's just like, you can get away from me with that. You can either, we can work with what my rate is going to be, or we just don't work together. So
right, yeah, and that's really true. And it's interesting because you said that you wonder, did they meet their quota? And I think I don't know how you're Black and work in any industry and not think that question, because sometimes they are trying to meet their quota. In the situation I just gave, that's what I felt like they were trying to do. But it's interesting because if you're white in this industry, you get hired all the time because of the color of your skin, and you never have to question whether it was because of that or your skill.
No, and that's the
go ahead.
And that's the difference. Like I've okay, and I'm just gonna, because me, I try to be as modest as possible, but when I feel like when I'm pitching, I'm not pitching a Hickman run. I am pitching for like an 8-pager, an 8 to 12 pager, which your kid can pick up at a Toys R Us, which has no effect on the canon of the already established larger universe. I would have fun because there's no, outside of kind of following the rules of that kind of whatever stipulations because actually, strangely enough, I pitch for Disney princesses. and that was strict. That was like I didn't make that because I apparently couldn't. Maybe I had the princesses doing too much radical stuff. But anyways, but when I'm pitching, it is not for like large ones. Like I'm just like, put me in an anthology, where I may not be a scene, but I can show you that I can do the work. So I've seen plenty of work out there that I can do that, and there's never a response. For people who feel that writing for a larger publisher is going to open up a lot of doors with larger publishers, yeah, that's a myth. I mean, that's not true. At least in my case. So it's so that's there are no guarantees in this industry, but that is unfortunate that we have to ask ourselves that question versus are we good enough or not? And like I said, with some of the stuff that I see, I could do that. But I'm grateful for the opportunities that I have with the indies. It seems like the indies is where that respect and love is actually shown, more. So.
Yeah, I think indies are the future anyway. Yeah. So let me ask you guys this. To Robert's point, he mentioned, knowing your worth. How much has not knowing your worth impacted the jobs that you've gotten? Or let me rephrase this. How much has not knowing your worth impacted the money that you feel you left on the table? Or
sorry. No.
Man, I have left. It's weird because this kind of like a cross section. One, I know I've left money on the table, but two, not knowing my worth definitely put me in a position where I allow clients to treat me a way that I know I shouldn't have been treated.
Right.
But yeah, money wise, because I do try to look out for people. And usually I'm working with people that look like me. So, I'm like, look, I know what it really costs. But I know you want to come up, you're trying to grind, trying to do your thing. So like, what's your budget? What do you really have? You know what I'm saying? Because you want a website that does this, that, and the third. I know in real life, that website's going to run you $3,000 to $4,000. You know what I'm saying? This ain't no Wix set up yourself.
Right.
But I also know that you come from where I come from, and you just got $1 in a dream, and you trying. You know what I'm saying? So I try to keep that in mind. But sometimes when you keep that in mind, people want to treat you wrong.
Or take advantage.
Yeah.
In my experience, to be honest, when you go lower, your client is worse. That's in my experience, because I think when you charge appropriately, the kinds of clients you get know what it's worth already. Whereas I feel like clients who are trying to, get you to come down on your price or whatever, they don't know what it's worth. Their time is not worth it to them. So your time's not worth it to them. Yeah. And so they don't understand the work that kind of goes into it. And I kind of feel like I'm still growing in this area, right? The rate that I quoted before, there are some people advertising that would look at that rate like, girl, you should have went twice that. Like, what do you mean? So I'm even still learning in this area. But the thing is, it's also really hard to gauge your worth in terms of what you should charge when you don't know what everyone else is charging. And we're really silent about prices. We're really silent about our rates. Because, and I think it's twofold. I think it's one, because we're embarrassed to say our rates if it's too low.
Yeah.
Because no one's embarrassed to tell you their rate when they making it, when they making that money,
when
right? Nobody's embarrassed to tell you.
When they're making a killing, they're like,
that's when they stunt.
Right, exactly. That's when they stunt. Yeah. And I also think, it's culturally, at least Americans don't like to talk about money, but I also think that that's a way to keep people from charging what they're worth.
Well, so first of all, what you kind of said was surprising me, Takeia, because like I said, you're one of the folks that I feel kind of trepidatious when we're talking to say, oh, this is my rate. What is she going to say? Because I think that, it might be too low. That's kind of one thing. But you've always been, like I said, one of the folks that kind of say, hey, value your worth. I actually, strangely enough, y'all can't see it, I have a whiteboard where I made a range based on the clientele that I'm working with. And it's based on kind of research, years of research. This was, when I started with Terminus, it was funny, like we were talking about exposure. When I was just happy to get a published story. I can honestly say that. I was just like, oh, I got my first comic book story, NERDSoul Girl. You'll never see a light of day. but I was happy, but then I was like, it's time to start getting paid for this. So when I started doing the research, at least on the writing end of things, it varied so much. Like it was, and then you start questioning the ranges that I found are based on experience. So it's just like, after how many years are you beginner, intermediate, medium, expert, whatever. So you have to kind of find that balance. And I feel that I have, versus, charging, I'll tell you right now, my rates for indies versus larger publishers are different. Straight up, do y'all want to know what the rate was for DC for writing? 'Cause I don't care about telling you.
Tell it.
Yeah, it was $75 a page. So $75 a page. So with the 12 pager, we got lit that month, so we were happy in the Jeffrey household, and that's why I'm like, I could just do 8 to 12 pages, but that's kind of like the top range, and that's even with the research that I've looked into, that I've done, that is a range that other writers have put out there as far as like, if you're an expert, that's the highest. And the lowest I think that I found was $13 a page. So it was funny, just last week I had a writer reach out to me and start kind of asking questions about rates, and he has he's pretty well established within the indie comics realm, but he still had his own questions, and we just had that conversation where it was just, like, charge what you feel you're worth. We found kind of a range that we felt wasn't going to put the publisher out, and something that he felt comfortable with, valuing as his worth. So I try to do that as much as possible with, just with folks that I know, who don't have that information, because it takes a long time to find it, because like you said, everybody is so closed mouth with it. But yeah, that was I don't know, maybe that's one of the reasons I don't get work, because that was one of the first few questions I asked when I got into the workshop. It was just straight up, because I was like, what about these dollars, yo? So yeah, money should not be something that you should be afraid of when it comes to being a creative. I don't want to be broke and begging and writing excellent stories. I want people to read them and pay for them. We have examples of people who have done that and actually are falling out of favor. I'm thinking about J.K. Rowling. Apparently she hates trans people, but
J.K. Rowling just came out.
Oh yeah, check the tweet, man. She is going ham. I guess she was like, I got these millions of dollars. I can say whatever I want, but it is horrible.
I will say one thing on the flip side. People were like, John Boyega, oh man, he's throwing away his career. I'm like, bro, he just finished the trilogy of Star Wars.
Yeah. He's fine. Like, that's another.
If you wanted to be like, I'm finished now.
Yeah. He was fine. Like just don't be afraid to talk about money. And I think that's a discussion that needs to be had. So people, can know what their worth is, so they won't be undercharged.
Right.
So
and to that point, real quick, I also think we have to stop discouraging people from talking about money by blaming them for the way the industry is when they charge too low. Because I've seen that conversation happen, and that's not good, because you can't blame someone for what they don't know. Right. If everybody's playing a guessing game with this rate thing, they really are. Everybody's playing a guessing game. I just, Mike, we were talking earlier, and I'm gonna pull it up right now, about the conversation going on Twitter, where people are talking about their rates, and I think the hashtag is publishing paid me. I looked at some of those comic book rates. I'm like, I gotta up my rate by 25, 30, 40%, because just seeing those rates made me realize, oh no, I gotta go up. So the thing is, especially when it comes to people who are just breaking in, a lot of times they don't know. We're not taught, especially if you're a comic book artist. How many comic book artists were told to take business classes? None. To focus on gesture.
Yeah, that's a good point. One thing this industry taught me, working on the corporate side, working on the entertainment side, working on the freelance side, is being able to defend your design choices. Yeah. And also defend your price. Your price is a standard. Stand on it. If they don't want it, tell them to go. Yes. Because, like, for me, I start at like $300 a day, depending on, because when I meet with a client, I look at like degree of difficulty, how long this is going to take. Like, say for instance, if you're like, hey, I want to do some photos, I just want to go out, let's meet at the park and just take some pictures, and we'll just shoot for a couple of hours, one outfit, whatever. Cool, 300, no problem. We'll shoot one outfit, you ain't changing no clothes, you ain't changing no hair, you ain't doing nothing. And all I'm doing is lightly touch, but this is, after we talk, I put it in the contract, like what you expect to be doing. And if we just going out to shoot on a beautiful sunny day at the park, you got one outfit, you ain't going back and forth, because I've done the ones where it's like 5 outfit changes. So if we're doing one outfit, cool, 300. I'll touch these up lightly for IG, and they're out the door. But if you want like headshots, portraits, you want to do some real photos in front of you want to go to the studio, you want to do all that, then that raises up, so mine is, I have a floor in mind of like how easy it might be. So say for instance, somebody wants to update a PDF, but I'm not really doing any design work that's hard. It's just more tedious than hard. Then I'd be like, cool, 300 a day. But now once it starts to get hard, I'll be like, that'll be 400, 500. So, and video is a whole nother thing. Video, we starting at around 8, 9 a day. Right. Because I'm gonna have to shoot it, I have to edit it, I'm gonna have to do filters and effects and stuff like that. So I have like a basic floor on some design and photography stuff. But I'd say figure out what your floor is and move from there, because everybody won't be able to afford you, and that'll leave you the wiggle room for jobs that you want to take, because you might think it's cool. Like, hey, I haven't worked with a restaurant before, so I'll give them my like wholesale price. You know what I'm saying? Or something like that. But if I've already done like 10 restaurants and here's another restaurant coming down the pike, and I'm cool on that, then you can give them your regular rate. It might not be 400 a day. For them, it might be like, yo, it's going to be 600 a day. Or, you know what I'm saying? So, and the way I figure that out is figure out how much money you want to make a year, and then just, use the basic math. Like, you would work a 5-day week, divide that, and this is, so if you wanted to make, I don't know, $100,000 a year, you would take that math and divide that, 5-day weeks and blah, 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 divide that, and you would get your number. And you would just be like, I got to make sure that I can defend this price for what I do, the services I provide, and all that, and go for it. Oh, and when people come back to you for something that you did like 2-3 years ago, charge them to give it to them again. Yes, because there's a statute of limitations on that too, and I would also say, in terms of knowing your worth, realize too that
your art or your writing has value by the sheer fact that it's making someone else money. Yeah. So when you start to think about your pricing, it's important to also think about what they're going to be doing with the work that you're giving them. Yeah. And because they're gonna make triple, quadruple the profit. And so if you were charging, if you did, let's say you did a commission, an art commission, say a studio wanted you to do an illustration and you charge $10 for it, and that person goes on to do $1 million campaign, so you have to think about the size of the people that you're working with. Yep. And what it is that they do, and consider that in your pricing as well. Pricing is not easy because, and I think a lot of it is because not knowing your worth plays a big factor into what you end up charging. But you have to, and to Mike's point, when he said that, when you start doing work and it becomes more work, the more work you have to do, the more you're charging. When you figure out your rate and then you decide to go higher, you have to be comfortable with not getting as many clients, but the clients that you're going to get are going to be better. But you have to be comfortable with, not
saying no.
You have to, say no. No is so powerful. It's so powerful. And you have to not be afraid to hear no either. If you go to someone with a certain rate and they tell you, well, that's too much, then, well, we can't work together. I mean, that's just it.
Yep.
They have to find someone else. And people do this all the time. Think about how many things you buy on a daily basis that you look at and you say that's too much, and you go find it somewhere else. So, you have to be okay with people people balking at your prices. As a matter of fact, if someone balks at your price, it probably means you were dead on. It probably means you were dead on. If you tell a person a rate and they're like, oh yeah, let's do it, you went too low.
Yeah.
You did. If you're like, that'll be $10. They're like, word, let's go. And you're like, yeah, you went way too low. But
there's times when I thought I was charging people high, and they were like, what? Let's do it. And I was like,
yep,
I could have got more.
I've been there too. And you think you got it. You're like, oh, I'm about to get paid. And they're like, oh, bet, let's go. And you're like, wait, why are you so excited?
Man, I'll never forget. I charged somebody. This is when I was like coming up. This is like maybe my second or third website, and I was like, that'll be $3,000. And they were like, word. And I was like, I probably could have went for $5.
Yeah.
I mean, and especially like when you start getting paid for, it's been such a long time for all of us, but when you start getting paid for your work, you're just like, I like this. It's a very, very good feeling. There was, and it's one of the regrets that I have in terms of like, maybe I should have asked for more. Like, I've done work for the Centers for Disease Control, and award-winning work, which they've used to kind of push I think it was like kind of a, raising awareness about HIV and STD awareness and prevention. And when they were winning those awards, I was just like, I should have got more money. That would have been great. But because they're reaping the benefits of the scripts that myself and other writers were doing. But it's just like, you live and you learn, and you just got to keep it moving.
And that's what you have to do. And that's why I also say, if you charge too low at some point, don't let anyone make you feel ashamed about that, because everyone does it. I don't care how much people talk and tell you and dictate to you what you should do. The reason I'm talking about it is because I've done it. I'll tell you straight up, I've done it. And so you learn by making those mistakes. Don't let anybody make you feel ashamed of it. Just take it and think about how you can do better next time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, definitely.
yeah, that's all you can do.
One thing I would add, because I tell artists, because it's interesting on LinkedIn, I get a lot of messages from young artists like, yo man, I see that you because like to them I made it, and I'm like, to a certain degree I kind of have accomplished the goal that I wanted to accomplish, sort of, by moving to LA. Because when I first moved to LA, I wanted to be an art director of a big brand. That's what I wanted to be. You know what I'm saying? My kind of goals have shifted, but you know, they'll always ask me, and one of the main things that I also add is, don't, like, when it comes to designing something, remember, it's not yours. It's not yours.
Yeah.
Care enough, but don't care so much that your feelings get hurt behind it.
Yeah.
It's not yours. It's theirs. You're helping them make something. You're there to provide your expertise to get them to the goal. It's not your poster. It's not your brochure. It's not your website.
It's not your comic.
Your video. You know, it's not your comic book.
It's not your comic book.
So unless you're indie, then it is your comic book. But for the most part, Woo,
oh man. I laugh to keep from crying.
But you know, it's because there's a lot of cases that I come across where people are like, man, it should be red. I can't believe they're changing it to blue or whatever. I'm like, that's what they want. They want blue, let it be blue. Let it be, like, why are you arguing with them over what color it should be? Now, I mean, there's certain design things that I might, you know, be like, hey, you probably don't want to do this because this usually means this, or, you know, this sizing might not fit here or whatever. But ultimately, if they want me to put 500 words in a place that I think comfortably fits 300, it's their paper. They can put all the words they want. Well, I look at it and be like, that's crazy. But, and then most times when you do that, they'll be like, let's cut out some words. I know. but just it's theirs. Let them do with their thing what they want to do.
Well,
but Mike, let me ask you. Oh, sorry.
We might be on the same. You asked your question. We might be on the same wavelength.
Mike, let me ask you this though. What happens when your name is attached to it? And they ask you to do something that you know looks crazy, but now your name is on it.
Same thing. I mean, I'm gonna use either the best part of it for my portfolio, or I also have to keep in mind that their circle thinks it's dope. So their circle might still look at it and be like, oh, who's this Michael Young character? You know what I mean? Who's this guy that put this together?
Wait a minute, he's back. We bet that quota this month.
Yeah, well, we've already got one black guy.
One black.
Right.
Yeah. What I was going to ask was, so there's a thing of where the clients are making some kind of questionable decisions, and then you can just like let it go. But the other part of that is, why did they hire you? Are they hiring you for your expertise, your skills? Like how vocal do you get to say, and there's a way to be diplomatic, like I remember Justice League or Justice League Unlimited, Hawk Girl or Hawk Woman told Superman, do you chafe with as much as you ride that fence? So as much as you sit on the fence or whatever. So do you stay on the fence, or do you and just let them make their decisions about what you feel is not the best way to go, or how vocal do you get? I'm
always,
are you America or are you Sweden? So,
I'm always there for. You'll kind of figure out whether they want you to be just a pair of hands, or if they want you to take more of a lead role. But I'm always for stating what you think works. Now, that puts the ball in their court. Now, if they say we don't want to use that, cool. It's in writing. I already suggested. Y'all said no. Cool, no problem. So I'd say always state what you think works. You know what I'm saying? Always consult them on the process. But there are some people that kind of just want you to be a pair of hands.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes there's people that think they're designers and aren't.
Yeah. Oh, gosh.
But you have to let them figure out why they're not doing it. So in that case, just keep working and just keep stating like, okay, cool. We're at this point. We should probably do this because it aligns, or I did this because it aligns with this page and that page out of a 30-page document or a 100-page magazine. I did it like this because the other articles are formatted like this, or whatever, and just leave it at that. If they think they know better, cool. Sometimes you have to show them to be like, yeah, I told you it doesn't look good like that. But if they want it, let them have it. Because I'm in my work, it's so much production. I'm always about finish it. Mm-hmm. Finish it. Get it out the door. Get it out the door. Why are we arguing about this paragraph? We got 100 pages. Get it out the door. And I'm glad that I had an art director over me that was very, very about finish it. Finish it. I don't care. I don't finish it. It's like, why are we arguing over how red it is? Or why are we moving this over? Why are we moving this 1 centimeter to the left and then back to the right? It's done. So now I'm in a mindset of like, let's just finish it. Let's just finish it. Right. If y'all want it this way, cool. I've stated my position. Cool. It's done. Let's move on. Right.
Can I say something? That's kind of where I am
on that one. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. Let me say something to that point. So one of the ways that you can handle that too is to always put a number of revisions in your agreement. Because when you make it red, Mike, and they say we're gonna make it green, and then they put it out there and they're like, this does not look good, and they want to come back to you to make it red again, you charge them again to make it red. Because you told them the magic number should be 3.
The magic number should be 3. And when the magic number should be 3 large revisions. So say if we're working on a poster, all right. So once the poster is generally laid out, that's when you start counting revisions. And what I mean by generally laid out is like you got all the words on there, you got all the pictures on there, everything is placed. Now you start counting revisions. Oh well, you know what? We really wanted to put the picture of the woman up there. And let's put an apostrophe right here. Let's get rid of that sentence. That's revision number 1. All right? Right. Next email, revision number, and then let them know after the 3rd revision, we charge, I don't know, 50, 100, 200, whatever works for you, make it work for you. But let them know, let's move along. Let's get it done.
Stay on schedule, right?
Yeah, it's like, stay on target. Man. So yeah. I'd say the magic number should be 3, because when I was working under a pretty cool art director, he'd be like, look, 3 revisions, close this ticket, you gotta open a new one. He'd be like, he would not play. He'd be like, close this ticket, it's done. You gotta open a new one if you want it. And when you open it, and they know when you open a new ticket, you go to the back of the line. So that kind of helped them, because depending on where you work, some departments can do what's called feature creep. And feature creeping is when it's like, oh, let's do this. Add a period. Make it a little more green. Slide this
or
to the left.
Scope creeping
Put
too.
It up a little bit. And next thing you know, you're like, yo, we've done like 20 mini revisions, and like it's still not done.
Yeah.
Well, this was it's funny because it's kind of client work, but like in the early days of Terminus, one of the things that used to frustrate me was that we had such a large group of writers and artists, and we would be kind of everybody put in their 2 cents. And I love how it is now, where I have one editor, one publisher, one artist, and it's not like we're delegating by consensus. It would get so frustrating. I was just like, I'm kind of like a loner. Like if you give me my job, like my assignment, let me sit down and just do it, and then we kind of work from there. And just having a lot of hands in the mix, I think that's something that I had to grow sometimes accustomed to when it came to the client work. You know, it's not just one person looking at this stuff sometimes, like when it's like maybe the non-comic book stuff. And maybe I got kind of spoiled with the indie stuff, but I know that early on I knew, like with Terminus, I was like, we can't do it like this because it would delay, things from coming out. But yeah. I usually just try to give the person, kind of my feedback, and then to say, if this is where you want to go, that's cool. If not, then I'll definitely do what you want me to do, and I'll just show off my best pages. So
right.
we'll just take it from there.
Yeah, and
yeah, definitely see. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Mike. Go ahead.
Definitely see if you can lock in the lead person on this. Like, okay, I know you're showing it to 4 of your friends, but who is the person deciding?
Who matters?
I don't want to take emails from like 3 or 4 people on this.
Right.
No, I want to email maybe you and one other person, but there needs to be a lead decision maker on your team. And I usually do this all in like a consulting meeting or whatever, and just tell them this makes it faster. This mitigates issues. You know what I'm saying? So any arguments you guys want to have, because I've also seen arguments over, I've been working on something and there's been like 5 people on the email chain. So it's me and 4 of them are making decisions. Like 2 of them love it. They're cool. They're like ready to go. 3 other people want to, let's add this and let's change this. And so now I'm seeing a thread of them arguing over whether it's done or not. And it's like, right. I don't really need to be involved in that. I just need one of you to come back to me and say it's finished or it's not finished, because it just makes your life easier and also helps you to track things easier as a freelance designer. You know what I'm saying? When it comes to any other emails from other clients that you have as well.
Right, and that's a great point, Mike, and something that can really get frustrating and slow things down, and something that I could be better at too. So thank you for saying that.
Also, man, you guys will encounter this. Whoever's watching this, you'll encounter this. Please try to keep people from breaking the email thread. Please try to keep because you'll get an email and you'll be like, why is there like, what is it? They changed the subject and everything. it's like, yo, no, put this back in the thread. So try to maintain the thread of changes, because since you can run your own project management system, but since they don't have access to it, you're kind of project managing through Gmail or something. Yeah. So you have to like kind of keep them focused on stay in this thread. Because now, since you didn't reply all, now they didn't see what you said, and now I have to kind of like reply all and reply back to you and add them and like reiterate what you said, and it's it gets crazy. So Mike, let me know if you think we're running a little long. If you think we cool, but I guess we exercise some good demons for this.
I think so. I definitely think so. We had some things to get off our chest.
Yes, especially with that exposure, boy, man.
Yeah.
Please, guys.
I saw the look in your eyes like that hit back 10, 15 years ago.
Man, that joint hit me fresh. Trying to get out there on those design streets.
Yeah,
what I had, what it took, because I'm like, I've looked through your website, I've looked through like the stuff you put out. I know I got skills. I know I can do this. And it's exposure.
Like,
yeah.
And not for nothing too, when we get to a point where we start to value ourselves, I really truly believe that this climate of underpaying artists and underpaying writers and underpaying designers for their work will change, because you will start to automatically value the industry and the culture of, I think part of the problem is people don't value it. That's really what it is. And part of it might even be because of how they consume it. Like, for example, if you do a poster, Mike, somebody looks at that poster for 2 seconds and they walk off, but they don't know that it took you hours to make it. When Robert writes a story, a comic book, and this goes for artists too, you know, you read in a 22, 24 page comic book, it doesn't take you that long to read, but it took a ton of time to make. And so because of that,
You're
I
talking
think
about hours.
Yeah, hours. Shoot, a graphic novel will take people, you know, a year or two, depending on how many pages it is. So, and someone might sit there and they might read it in one sitting. So, you know, I think it's
kind of like a good thing and also kind of a bad thing, because it's like, oh man, they couldn't put my book down. But then it's also like, yeah, but they kind of just consumed it super fast and moved on.
Right, exactly. It's the same. I mean, not to bring up hip hop, but I bring that up in any conversation.
Oh no, hip hop's always good.
But I can't remember if it was like Joey Badass or Kendrick Lamar. One of those two, I think, was talking about this exact thing, that it takes them years to make an album, but you consume it in one sitting, and then you're on to when's the next one coming out. It's like, can you just sit with the thing that it took me years to make and value it?
It's kind of like it's kind of like a compliment, and then also entitled too, because it's like, yo man, you listen to the whole thing, no skips. Wow, dope. Thanks. I'm glad you love it so much. But it's like, you know, this took like mad long to make, and you asking for another one right now. Like,
exactly.
I have to tour this album. I have to like go market it and do, you know, signings and speaking engagements and commercials and whatever, all kinds of stuff to pump up this album. I know you got it day one, and I'm glad you got it day one, but I gotta like make sure other people get this. So people might not even know it exists. Exactly. So the way in which we consume things too kind of plays into how we value it. And so it's, you know, when you start to value yourself and the amount of work that you put in and the value that you're bringing to your client, whoever that might be, if it's Marvel, if it's a big brand, in Mike's case, if it's a publisher, a children's book publisher or anything like that, the value that you're bringing to what you're doing automatically, I think, in the long run will show in the prices and the rates that we're able to charge. Because not for nothing, people have to understand that they should value it, and that's part of the problem, because they consume it so fast, they don't know that they should value it to the level that it takes to make it.
I mean, it's like we're kind of in a kind of a fast food era when it comes to, let's think, like streaming TV. Like people binge. It's like going to a buffet. It's, you have Comixology. You can read any comic book that you want whenever you want. You know, it's just, and then sometimes I feel that, you know, people kind of undervalue creatives. You know, it's just like these fandoms that you love, that you cosplay as, that you go to panels at conventions, or that you just simply go out on a Friday night. Once again, when movie theaters were open back in the old days now.
Back in the olden times.
A long time ago.
Just like a date night. Like you go out to see Endgame. You know, that takes a lot. You know, it's it's just, and I think sometimes it's kind of undervalued or kind of underappreciated. But as a creator, you know, you making that stuff, now get yours. You better, because at the end of the day, it's, you know, there are no what I say, the health benefits for comic book writers. You know, it's just like you get your money, deuces, and that's it. And hopefully
and that could be another
you know what? That's another thing that you should add into the money that you're thinking about for your day rate. How much health insurance costs for you. You know what I'm saying? Whether you're paying for one person who might be single, or for me, who has me, my wife, and a child. You know what I'm saying? It's a little more expensive. You know what I'm saying? So, but yeah, I do like that you hit on that. We can get into that the next time about the undervaluing. I think it's because Photoshop got everybody thinking they're a designer. Or Manga Studio got everybody thinking they could draw. Clip Studio Pro.
Or
Magic
how
Studio
about
always sounds
everybody
better
can
to
make
me.
beats now?
Yo, you just buy a SP404, or you buy a, well, no, now because they only want to make beats on the computer. So it's like, oh, well, I just bought this program, or I bought this like rolling like controller for my laptop, and I can make beats. And it's just like, it's not that easy.
Yeah, it's not. So yeah, let's definitely next time we can talk about the whole value thing, and dive deeper into that. But I think, do you guys have any other grievances? Or things you want to talk about, advice you want to give?
I think pretty much that I can think of now, the advice is figure out what your day rate's going to be, stick to it, and also realize or realize that it's not your design, it will be someone else's, and figure out how to defend your design choices. Because a lot of times if you're in the corporate side, you're like, well, why did you do this? Or why did you do that? Sometimes you'll have that kind of boss or that manager that wants to know why you did this or why you made that page that way or whatever. And be able to defend your choices. And it doesn't have to be argumentative way, but just know how to defend your choice. Like, I chose to do this because the lighting's like this, or the page is like this, or page 10 is like this, and we structure it like this, or this amount of words or whatever. Just be able to defend your design choices. So yeah, I think that's about it.
What about you, Robert?
For me, make money, make no, I'm kidding. Yes. No, know your worth. That's something that I personally still, have to deal with. It's because I mentioned now I'm going into doing more pros. So I'm trying to figure out like, what am I worth when it comes to that? To be honest with you, I think I missed out on an opportunity because they weren't ready for the rates that I gave them. But I was like, I felt that I was kind of at that level, so know your worth, study as much as you can about the business side of whatever creative field that you're going into. It's not just about being an artist. It's not about just being a graphic designer or a writer or whatever. You have to, know the dollars and cents side of everything. And for me, this is coming from somebody who hates math. I've been forced to do that. So I'm the guy that pulls out the calculator at the convention just to make sure I get the change right. And they're like, this is low.
Right.
But that's just me.
He has his little hat. His little hat.
Yeah, his little hat. And then they're already going to buy the next Deadpool pinup or whatever. They're like, F Route 3. This guy can't get change. Specifically with comics, I always say indie or mainstream. These are the three things that you need to succeed. Turn the work in on time. Don't be an a-hole, and know what you're doing. And I've always been told that you can survive in this industry on just two of those. I'm always more of the mindset, one of those being don't be an a-hole. Right. But those are, the three things. And like I said, the last part, just learn your craft as much as possible. And don't ask people for the hookup. That doesn't work anytime. Yeah. Somebody asked me for a free copy of that Green Lantern story I read. I was like, I'm still trying to get work with these. I'm not selling these comics on the black market. Yeah, that was crazy. But that's what I've learned. How about yourself, Takeia?
I would say, like you said, know your worth, value yourself. And, one of the ways I think to increase that value is with knowledge. So always keep learning. When it comes to pricing, do your research and figure out how to price better for yourself. And when you get that little voice in your head that says, it may be too much, don't listen to it. Go out instead and let the market tell you what you should be charging. Now, I understand that can be difficult when people don't talk about pricing, but what you can do is research how to price. Mike just gave a really good example when he talked about if you want to make so much a year, you start breaking that down. And consider, you know, for those of you who are freelancing, and you have to now also consider healthcare, you have to also consider self-employment tax, which is woo.
Taxes, oh man.
Taxes are a whole other thing.
Find you a tax person that is not going to screw you over and can hopefully help you get all you can get.
Yeah. So
as someone right now who is self-employed, had to be freelance during some periods out here in LA, who is now paying the IRS for not knowing things. So trust me. And the IRS, they want their money.
They sure do. They sure do. So, you know, like I said, one of the ways to mitigate a lot of this stuff is knowledge. I will tell you one YouTube channel that I follow a lot is The Future, but maybe some people know Chris Doe. I watch pretty much everything that he puts out, because even though he's started out in the design space and transitioned into kind of like an education thing, but he started out in the design space. So even though he's a designer, I would encourage writers, artists, illustrators, anybody who sees themselves as freelance or having a small business or what have you, watch the stuff on his channel, because he talks in depth about a lot of the things that we covered today. And one of the things he talks about too is valuing yourself. So, you know, do your research and get as much knowledge as you can, and you'll start to see that the way that you approach things will change automatically.
Knowledge is power.
Knowledge is power.
Yeah.
The more you know with the little.
You should put like a special effect.
Right.
This.
Please put that in, Mike.
I'll probably get hit for that.
You might.
Oh God, yeah. YouTube's gonna shut it down.
Oh yeah,
YouTube is not playing in these
All right,
streets,
don't do it.
They like the mafia. They coming into your shop.
Yo,
right.
You guys, don't get me started with YouTube.
That's another one.
Yeah, it's kind of like the only way right now. Well, not the only way, but one of the only ways right now for content creation. So that's a whole nother discussion.
Yeah.
We could have a million discussions.
But yeah, we will definitely do this again.
Okay.
We definitely got to do this again. I guess with that said, Robert, that's in the center square, sort of. Where can people find you?
You can find me at robertkjeffrey.com. That's robertkjeffrey.com. And I think Instagram, I'm robertk.jeffrey. And buy some books from the website. You know, we gotta eat over here.
Let that dollar circulate.
Yes.
If you're gonna read anyway, buy some books from this brother or other brothers and sisters that's out there making books. There's tons of them. They're everywhere.
Yeah. And look out, and I'm going to say it again, look out this summer for our story and Kamikaze Short Circuits. Takeia and I focusing on Orson? Yeah, from
Orson.
the world. So it's like, Batman Beyond meets Mad Max. And
ooh.
Yeah. I'm hyped. I mean, I wrote the story and I'm hyped to see it. So, yeah, but that's where you can find me.
Yeah.
Cool. And right here, I think, Takeia.
Yes. So you can find me at takeiamarie.com. That's TAKEIAMARIE.com, and at Takeia Marie on all social media. And Mike, where can they find you?
Yes. NERD, SOUL, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Ireland places. YouTube is the main hub, but I got podcasts, you can listen to that. I got music on Spotify, you can listen to that. So support your boy. Of course, Patreon, Super Chat works, that's great, but talk about a brother. Share a brother's work. Leave a comment, leave a like, help the algorithm lift me up. But not for real, just tell your mama, your cousin, your dad, your brother, sister, all that. If they like hip hop and geek, tell them holla.
Awesome.
All right.
Man, so with that said, we thank you for coming through. Thank you for watching. And from us to you, we're just saying peace.
Peace.